night may be long and the dark may be deep, but the answers are there to be found. Whether it's the normal, the abnormal, or the paranormal, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond reality.
Good evening, good morning, and welcome, everyone. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. Jason is not with us tonight, despite the fact that he had been saying that he's going to give us a big announcement. Well, I'm going to do it instead, and I'll get to that in just a second. Welcome to the show, everyone. We've got a great one lined up for you. Lauren Walker, who is an author and creator of Energy Medicine Yoga, will be joining us to talk about energy medicine yoga, how it can affect all parts of our life in a positive way. She has a book out. It's called The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. And it is written to help you understand not just the benefits, but how this particular technique can actually help you cure some ailments, or at least help with them. So we've got a great conversation ahead with Lauren, and that's coming up in just a little bit, of course. So I have a number of things that I want to go over. I'll start with the Ghost Hunters / Jason Hawes announcement. Of course, many of you have already seen posted on social media and other places that Jason Hawes, Steve Gonzalez, and Dave Tango, who you know from Ghost Hunters, they've announced that they will have a new show starting. It'll be on the Travel Channel. And the working title right now, and it'll probably end up being the final title, but the working title is Ghost Nation. And the premise here is that those three veteran paranormal investigators will be traveling around the country to highly haunted, at least reportedly haunted, locations. And they will do investigations with other groups, other paranormal investigators that are in those areas to help them find the answers. Again, the show's called Ghost Nation at this point. May change, probably won't. And it'll air in the fourth quarter of 2019. It'll probably, I'm just guessing here, they'll probably try to kick something off around Halloween. Or maybe October, maybe early October. But I know they're going to start filming very, very soon. I'm looking forward to being involved a little bit as well. And it sounds like it's going to be a great project. Again, on the Travel Channel, which the Travel Channel has quickly become the all-paranormal channel. I don't know if you've noticed that, but a very large portion of their programming is paranormal related. So all of us who are involved with and listen to this program would appreciate that, I suppose. So it'll be Jason, it'll be Steve, so Jason Hawes, Steve Gonzalez, and Dave Tango from Ghost Hunters will be involved in this program, and other investigators around the country as well. So we'll be looking forward to that, and when Jason is on the program here tonight, or not tonight, but here on this program again, we'll have an opportunity to talk about it in a little more detail. So that's the big announcement, and it's an exciting one, and we look forward to all that stuff getting started, the show being filmed, and when it debuts in the fourth quarter of this year. So it's exciting stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, I wanted to mention a lot of people listen to this show as a downloaded podcast after the fact. The next day, the show is edited and it's uploaded, and people subscribe to the show as a podcast. They get to listen to it on their way to work. In many cases, it's on their way home from work, because I don't get the show uploaded until after most people are already at work because we're on late. So anyway, so there are a lot of people that listen to the show as a podcast. It's a great way to catch the show. We always invite them to join the live version, but I understand it's tough for some folks given the hour. But in addition to that, a lot of people who do other podcasts listen to our podcast. The podcast community is growing by leaps and bounds, and there are a lot more people involved in it than used to be, and those numbers continue to swell. So one of the things that we're doing, and I say we, I'm talking about Scaricon, which is the event that I put on twice a year. We've got one coming up in Framingham, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston, and it is June 7th through the 9th. And at that particular Scaricon, we are introducing the first annual Horror Podcast Awards. So if you know somebody, or you listen to a horror-based podcast and you know how to reach the folks, or if you do one yourselves, you should check out the Scaricon website. There's a section there, I think it's under the More heading. You can just go to More and click down. It said Podcaster Awards. You can submit podcasts to be considered for the awards, and there will be prizes and national recognition for these podcasts that end up winning. Each category, I think, will have 5 nominees. And from the nominees, judges will select the winner. So it's going to be a real effort to recognize and honor people that put a lot of effort into podcasts. So check that out on the Scaricon website. Also, if you just happen to be a fan of horror and sci-fi entertainment, you're going to want to look at that as well. It's a terrific weekend, a lot of fun. I promise you, it's a great time. And the next one coming up is in Framingham, Massachusetts, June 7th through the 9th. And just check that out on Scaricon.com. Let me say, one other thing I want to mention before we go to break, and then we'll bring our guest in. I want to thank everybody for subscribing to the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/C/JV Johnson. It's my channel, and we do a lot of things there, including stream the show live. And we've surpassed 1,200 subscribers. And I know it wasn't that long ago we were trying to get to 1,000. So thank you all for subscribing. If you know other people that would enjoy what we talk about, please send them a link to the channel so that they can subscribe as well. Talk about it on your social media. You can always share our interviews and our videos on your social media so other people can check them out. The more, the better. That's what it's all about. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far, and welcome to all our new subscribers as they continue to join us. The last thing I'll mention before we go to break here is we've got some great shows coming up. Tomorrow night, we've got 2 guests during the show. The first hour will be Paulo Adavissimo. He is a science journalist, and he's going to be talking about the moon landing hoax, but he's going to be taking the other side. We've had folks on the show that have contended the moon landings were a massive hoax, continue to be a massive hoax, and never really happened. They make a lot of very, very interesting points that support their position. But Paulo he takes the contrary opinion. He says it's pretty obvious we went to the moon, and people who say we didn't don't have their facts straight. And he's going to talk about that tomorrow night during our discussion. And then in the second hour of the program, Gary Williams will be here. He is a psychic and an author. He's got a new book out called The Foreseeable Future, which is a discussion of his evolution as a working psychic, as well as other known predictive psychics down through history. So what have psychics said about the future when they've made those predictions? We're going to talk about that and how they've made those predictions and how the accuracy rate has fared, I imagine. And Gary will also be taking some calls for live readings tomorrow night, if we have time. Since we have 2 guests, we're going to be squeezing a lot in tomorrow night. That's, of course, right here on the program tomorrow night. Let's see here. Friday's always a best of. Monday starts a new week. We've got a whole bunch of great stuff, including Claire Waters, Gloria York. She's written a book called Medical Manslaughter. Now, this is an interesting thing because I got the book in here and I started looking at it today. The subtitle of Medical Manslaughter is Will Your Doctor Cause Your Death? It's a true story based on her husband's death by medical error. Gloria outlines many supernatural experiences in the book, including what she describes as the 6 miracles that took place during her experience. So again, her book is called Medical Manslaughter, Will Your Doctor Cause Your Death? Gloria York. She's on Tuesday night's program. So you can see we've got a lot of great stuff coming up, and looking forward to another great show tonight. Again, Lauren Walker will be with us in just a moment. She's the author of a book and a technique called Energy Medicine Yoga. The book is called The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. That's all ahead right here on Beyond Reality Radio. Don't go away. Did you know that online retailers like Amazon have constant deals that can save you money on the things you buy every day? It's no joke. Save 40%, 50%, even 80% on great products, and all you have to do is know about them. Noodle Shark is the way to be alerted when something good is coming your way. Noodle Shark is the social media page that lists great deals that not only save you money, but give you the deals before anyone else has them. All you have to do is find Noodle Shark on Facebook. Search it as The Noodle Shark. That's The Noodle Shark, because you deserve to save too. Become a shark and save. Thanks for being with me tonight. We've got a great one lined up for you. Lauren Walker will be joining us in just a second. She's the author of a book called The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. She's also a yoga instructor, creator of the system, and it's going to be a fantastic discussion. I'll remind you that our phone lines will be open at the end of at the beginning of the second hour at 844-687-7669. Let's go and bring our guest in. Lauren, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. It's a real pleasure to have you on tonight.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
So this is kind of a shorter segment, so I want to get to learn a little bit more about you. You grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, is that right?
That is correct, yeah. Nobody in any interview has ever talked to me about that. That's quite funny. Yep, Worcester, Mass.
Well, one of the reasons it caught my attention is I do, and you may have heard it in the beginning of the program, I do a horror fan convention. I did it in Springfield for the first couple of years, and I moved it to Framingham. So I've kind of sandwiched Worcester, and Worcester has one of its own called Rock and Shock every year that I've been to a number of times. So I'm pretty familiar with Worcester. I'm assuming you haven't lived there in a while.
I have not lived there in a while. No, not since I went off to New York City to university a bunch of years ago. So, yeah, it's been a long time. But I do go back every once in a while and see some friends that are still living there and visit some relatives that are no longer living but are still planted in Worcester. So, yeah, I do get back there. See my old house.
Yeah, I travel through that area quite a bit, honestly, and I spend a lot of time in Framingham, so I know it. Now, you went to college in New York City, and then after you graduated college, it seems like you kind of got the travel bug. You did a lot of traveling. I
did. I was just recounting the other day. I'm at 32 or 33 countries, and most of them were in that time. And a lot of traveling just in this country after I graduated college. I don't know how many states I've been in. I haven't counted those, but I did quite a big cross-country tour around and up and across and back. I've actually driven cross-country several times and seen a ton of Canada, so I've definitely spent a lot of travel time on this landmass as well. And yeah, traveled all over the world, lived in Central and South America for a little while, and New Zealand, and gotten to visit a lot of beautiful, beautiful places on this planet.
When you were traveling, was it an adventure of sightseeing, or were you looking for something? Was it something spiritual about it?
That's a great question. I probably started, the year after I graduated college, so I had been traveling quite a bit around this country. My father died, and very suddenly, and he was very young. He was 49 years old, and I was only 23. And I always have sort of credited that moment with throwing me, unwillingly, but throwing me on the spiritual path, because I was so devastated by that sudden death. And that also precipitated years of pretty constant travel, most of it international. And so I would definitely say, I was seeking, I was doing a lot of spiritual retreats as well, and I was definitely, looking for something, looking to heal just my own grief at how just difficult and unexpected this world can be. And I think that really was a huge part of it.
I'm not sure how the travel connects to what we're going to be talking about when we get into the yoga. You may want to make that connection, but I don't want to get into the yoga yet. But the bigger question here is, do you feel as though those experiences while you were traveling and the things you were seeing and the things you were encountering, did that change you? Did that set you down this path?
Oh, absolutely, massively so. Just seeing how different people live in the world, and I was doing immersive travel. I wasn't, I travel now and I, go to a hotel and I teach at a conference and I take an Uber, but this was not that kind of travel. This was, everything on my back, a pack, and, third world countries and buses and hostels and camping and just really living in a place. And and this isn't anything new. I mean, people have said this forever. It's just so interesting to me how you go to these impoverished, financially, I would say, third world countries, so to speak, and people are just so much happier and more generous and more heart-centered and more connected to themselves, to the earth, to each other. The sense of community is so much stronger, and just really overall joy at being alive. And, there's been studies showing how much depression is growing in the Western world. We're kind of drenched in opportunity and advantages, and yet we're some of the unhappiest people in the world. And so I think a lot of those experiences really informed my view of the world and how you can step out of your environment and see something different and adjust your sails. And I think that was important.
You, at one point, turned down an opportunity to further your career as an author didn't turn out, put it on hold, and you ultimately came back to write. Did you set out when you went to college to become an author?
I didn't actually. Originally, my plan was to be an actress.
Ah, okay.
And that's why New York City and NYU. I was a student at Tisch School of the Arts, which is a very famous, well-known theater school. And I had some experiences there. I had my Me Too moment in college that really, I would say, sort of disrupted my whole desire to be in front of the camera in that way. Of course, I am in front of it now, but as a yoga teacher, it's much different than if I had been an actor and had spent my life in that world. And so after that moment, I was like, I kind of want to be behind the scenes. I don't want to see anyone. I mean, it was quite, an unpleasant experience, and it changed my trajectory. And I'd always been a writer as well, and I'd always thought, well, I'll write my own, work to act in or something. But writing had always been there, and I just turned to that more as a chronicler. And I was offered a full fellowship in publishing, and I just could not bear one more moment in New York City, so I left.
Well, I see there's a real difference between living in New York and where you ended up on many occasions, Montana, of all places, which is absolutely beautiful country. I've traveled through Montana on several occasions. Yeah. All right, let's do this. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into yoga and start talking about that part of our conversation. Our guest tonight, Lauren Walker. Her website is emyoga.net. You can find out a lot of information about what we're going to be talking about at that website. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. We've got a lot more, so don't go away. Please support the program. Go to patreon.com/Johaw. That's Johaw. Our guest tonight is Lauren Walker, author of the book, The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. We will take your calls later in the show at 844-687-7669. Lauren, I need to ask you, and this may seem like a very, very basic question, but I think it's important to ask it and get the definition. Tell us exactly what yoga is.
That's actually a great question because it's so misunderstood in today's sort of commercialized yoga world. But yoga essentially means union, to bring two things together. And in the traditional yoga practice from India, which is what we're basing everything off of, it's not just the physical body, but it's using the physical body through a series of poses and breath work and meditation and certain precepts that you follow that bring you towards cohesion with yourself. Really, it's union with yourself, but overall, it's a feeling of health and well-being and satisfaction in your life as it is, as well as then becoming your best self, going towards what you want to achieve in your life. So it's a system of healing body, mind, and spirit, essentially.
And at what point in your journey did this come to your attention and become something that you wanted to spend your life doing?
It was back to New York City, so I actually ended up back in New York after several years when I had lived in Montana and traveled all over the world, and I was back there working on a novel and living in a crazy little cabin in the back of an apartment in the East Village, and my roommate came in one day and gave me a flyer for a yoga studio, because if you're not a runner, exercising in the city is difficult, and so I thought yoga was boring for old people, but I didn't have really anything else to do, so I went into this class, and it blew my mind. It was the most physically challenging thing I had ever done, and at the same time I felt completely at home in my body in a way that I never had before. And I just started studying with the teachers at the studio and kind of dove in from there. Took a teacher training soon after that, started teaching in New York right after that, and then moved back to Montana and started teaching, opened a yoga studio, studying, teaching, and that's basically what I've been doing ever since.
Now, I'm one of those people, and I think, I don't know if you just used it because I didn't hear it, but I saw on your website the term or phrase snore bore. You had an impression that yoga was kind of boring and that it wasn't very active or whatever that means. But when I read that, I thought, that's kind of what I think too. I've never tried yoga. So what do you say to somebody like me that would maybe convince me to try it?
What I would say, and because of what I teach now, which is so markedly different from what I used to teach and from what a lot of people are studying out there, what I would say to you now is, how do you feel? Do you feel great? Do you wake up in the morning with a lot of energy? When you get sick, do you heal easily? Do you feel vigorous in your life and excited about what's coming up? Do you have enough energy throughout your day? Are you basically happy? You have good relationships and easeful communication with people and feel engaged in your world? And if you said yes, 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 yes to all of that, and you had a physical activity that you were doing that was keeping you healthy, I would say, well, maybe you don't need yoga. If you said no to any one of those things, I would say I could absolutely show you some things that would really help you to have more energy, to have more immune system response, to be more flexible in your mind and in your body, but especially in your mind, because, of course, that's where we need the most flexibility. So it really is for anybody, and you can make it as dynamic and physically challenging as you want, and a lot of people really like that style of yoga that's really physically active. And you can do, I've taught classes to people in wheelchairs or even in hospital beds that can't move but are still seeking healing and peace and transformation in their lives. So it's really for anybody. If you are breathing, come do some yoga.
When I've have several friends that sing the praises of yoga and how much better they feel. And when you were ticking off the list of things, there were several along that list that I thought, oh yeah, I don't feel so great when I get up in the morning, or whatever. There were a bunch of them that really struck me as things that would be things I'd like to improve personally. But I saw something else in your list of ideas here, and it said that, a lot of people think maybe they're either too old or maybe overweight, or, they're just not in a physical place that either they will get the benefit from this or that they could even do it. And that's not true, is it?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, some people that are, if you really are out of shape right now, or you feel like you're carrying a few extra pounds, which may or may not be true, by the way. A lot of, how we view ourselves is not actually what's the most healthy for us. But if you really are sort of feeling, rough and not super flexible, which that's everybody's excuse for not doing yoga, but it's like the further you have to go to your optimal health, you're going to see more benefits right away than if somebody is, Michaela Schifrin comes to my yoga class. She's already, working at a super high level of mind-body connection and fitness, and she may have fewer immediate responses or results from the work that we do. So, I think if you're struggling a little bit more, you're actually going to see results quicker, and that's in every area, not just physically, but emotionally as well. If you're not used to working with your emotions, which cause stress, which cause disease patterns in the body, and you start all of a sudden paying attention and doing some of these practices to process your emotions, you're going to notice things, really quickly. I started teaching this and creating this work, teaching at a military university. Like, that's the last place you think people are going to be excited to do yoga. And the experiences that these students had and the transformations that they had with this work is really what propelled it to the book, releases and all of that, because their results were phenomenal.
Do you emphasize the mind-body connection when you are engaged in yoga or when you're teaching it? I mean, how important is that in this whole process?
Oh, it's everything. It's so important. The most important piece of your health, it's hard to say which one is more important. I would say the two most important pieces of your health. One is your energy, your underlying energy systems of the body. So we are actually made up of energy. We think we're, a concrete physical form here, but really underlying that, you are just energy vibrating at different frequencies. And you've got 9 energy systems that are all interwoven and interconnected that make up the energetic lattice work of your being, of your ness, so to speak, and from that your physical body then manifests. And so if you can work with your energy, a lot of times things that may come into form don't come into form, or things heal and resolve easier because you're working with something that's more easy to manipulate than the physical clay, so to speak, of your body. So that would be number one. But number two is your thoughts and beliefs. And, we do a lot of work understanding the placebo and nocebo effect and the interrelation between the mind and body, the power of visualization. You can create muscle mass with your body just by visualizing. So the power of your mind is incredibly important, understanding your conscious and subconscious minds and how those operate. And so bringing that into unity, into yoga itself, your mind and body, that is the goal of the yoga practice, and stopping this kind of internal division.
What's the history of this? How long have people been practicing yoga?
Yoga's 5,000 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it's old, and Ayurveda, which is kind of the medicinal arm of yoga, also 5,000 years old. Chinese medicine, 5,000 years old. So and those practices kind of developed interwoven together in a lot of ways, influenced each other. And so, this stuff has been around for a long time. And some of the practices that we do in energy medicine yoga even predate that. There's some movements that we teach that were actually found in the hieroglyphs from the pyramids. And so ancient ways of moving the body and accessing energy in the body that from the dawn of humanity has been passed on to us and is really our birthright for how to heal ourselves and feel good. It's all built in. We just never got the manual, so I'm trying to write a couple of manuals to help us.
Yeah, we don't come with the user manual. That would be really helpful at some point, right? All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with our guest, Lauren Walker, creator of Energy Medicine Yoga. She's got a book. It's called The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. Her website is emyoga.net. Check that out. Lauren, in your journey, as you got to this point, there was a period where I don't know if you walked away from yoga or you were forced to walk away from it, but you had a little bit of a tragedy in there, not to you personally, but in your circle of folks. Tell us a little bit about what happened and how it changed you.
Yeah, so I actually left Montana and moved up to Canada and left the yoga world. I had a yoga studio here, and I call it my Lemony Snicket year because it sort of was one thing after another just went awry. So I ended up losing that studio, and I felt the need to move away. I just was so devastated by it. And I moved up to Canada, and I met a yoga teacher there who was amazing, and I felt so grateful to find someone to study with and train with, because, at some point you start to, if you've studied with a lot of the masters as I had, it's hard to find a teacher that can keep bringing you further along the path. And she was an incredibly wonderful teacher, Mary Jo Federley, her name is. And so that first winter in this town up in Canada, very early in the winter, she had a ski accident and broke C7, I believe, or C3-4 actually, and became a quadriplegic overnight, instantly. And it was such a shock to this small community. And, of course, I had just moved up there a few months prior to that and had just known her very recently. But it was just an incredible shock. She was a beautiful yogi, had an incredibly strong physical practice, sort of one of those acrobatic practices where she could just do anything with her body. And she was a, active outdoors woman, skier, hiker, biker, all of that. And it was just shut down. And it was really tragic. And it just kind of, it was one more piece on this spiral of just kind of losing a lot of things. And so that also contributed to my really just pulling back from the yoga world. And it was around that same time that I met Donna and her work and kind of went down that other path.
Do people play in the practice of yoga and throughout your experience, and you're an instructor as well, how important is it to have a mentor or somebody who you work with on a rather consistent basis? Are the people that important, or is it just the practice itself that's important?
That's a great question. I would have to say one of the themes of the book is both and I might have to answer both and to that, because there's sort of two pieces to it. The physical practice, when you get on the mat and you do your asana practice, and which is the physical postures, moving your body through these poses, and you do your breathing practice, and you do your meditation. So you do that on the mat. And, I think going to classes is great and having a great teacher is fabulous, but really, ultimately, the goal is you alone on your mat every day. That's where you really learn the depth of the practice and the transformation in your own mind, body, and your own life is really cultivating your own personal practice. The flip of that is we really need community just as human beings, but also on the spiritual path. It's a shocking path. It's not, puppies and flowers. It's not really light and fluffy. It's kind of looking at everything really deeply and ultimately getting to the point where you're not devastated by even the devastating events that happen in your life. And I think it's crucial to have a guide, a mentor, as you said. It doesn't have to be, a guru teacher kind of person, which is, more and more difficult to find a true guru in that sense. We can have that conversation if you want to, but to have somebody that you can debrief with, that can check you, not just a friend that can say like, oh, I'm really sorry that happened, or like, whoa, what are you doing? But somebody that can really, that has more wisdom than you, more experience, that can really guide you and show you different things that you might not be seeing. Whether you take those on or not, just having that person or people in your life, I think it's really important, especially in this kind of crazy world we're living in today, where more and more people feel isolated and alone. I think it's important to have someone that's got your back, that you can trust.
Isn't it amazing how more connected we are via technology, how lonelier we become?
It is. It's mind-boggling. And the truth is, we spend so much time on our machines. And I live in a really small town, and a town where machines, we don't spend as much time on these devices as your average bear. And I just notice when I have days on end that I'm not on any media, it's like it feels, it's such a strange disconnect to go back and forth, from being with actual humans doing engaged in activities, and then to this other world where it's vaster on one sense, but so much more limited on another sense. It's really a crazy world we live in today.
We have about a minute here before we have to go to our next break. I want you to take that minute and kind of walk us through your website. You've got a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, so it's emyoga.net, and we're revamping it right now, so within a couple weeks it'll be uploaded and fresh. But it's got everything, all of my schedule, where I teach, my trainings, ways that you can start doing these practices online. There's some online courses that are just beautiful, easy to follow. Build your practice for yourself, where the books are, tons of interviews and reviews and everything. So anything that you want to know about EM Yoga, it's emyoga.net, and you can reach out to me and send me an email from there as well.
All right, so we're going to continue our conversation on the other side of the break. We're talking with Lauren Walker. Her book is The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription, and we're going to continue that conversation. Don't forget, we also will open up the phone lines if you have a question or you want to comment. I'd love to hear about your experiences. If you've practiced yoga, you've been involved in it or tried it, liked it or didn't like it, love to have your comments as well. Looking for our guest's book? Go to Amazon.com/shop/JVJ Taps. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Jason has the night off. And despite the night off, or one of the reasons he may have the night off, he's probably being inundated with, all kinds of correspondence communication because of the announcement today, which I'll revisit here. Of course, Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters, Steve Gonzalez and Dave Tango, also both from Ghost Hunters, have announced today that they've signed a deal with Travel Channel. And they'll be bringing a new TV show to the air in the fall, or I guess, late fall of this year. It's the working title right now is called Ghost Nation. And this particular show will feature the three of them, Jason, Steve, and Dave from Ghost Hunters, heading out to very reportedly haunted locations and working with other teams, different teams at every location, and trying to get to the bottom of some of these hauntings. And they'll use their expertise and their experience to guide these other groups and do some paranormal investigating like they used to do on Ghost Hunters. So a lot of people excited about that. Again, the show is called Ghost Nation at this point. It may change. It's not a completely committed to title at this point. It's a working title, but it looks like it will stay that title. And they're going to start filming in just a few weeks. And then they will be airing the show in the fourth quarter of this year. Now, I expect it to be around Halloween. Maybe it'll be mid-October, beginning of October when it starts to air. And it'll be on the Travel Channel. So exciting stuff if you're a paranormal and reality show enthusiast, as Ghost Nation will be starting filming and coming to the air in the fall. So we'll look forward to that. A couple other things I'll mention to you. Stop by the Beyond Reality Radio webpage at beyondrealityradio.com. Check out the Beyond Reality Radio coffee mug. It's a great gift. It's great to have on your desk, on your coffee table, in your kitchen, by your coffee maker, or tea, or hot chocolate, or whatever it happens to be. It works for all those things. It actually works for pens and pencils really well, too, because I've got a couple of those here on my desk. And then also stop by my Facebook page. It's JV Johnson on Facebook, and it's also JV Johnson on YouTube. I'd love to have you like and or subscribe to both of those pages for me to help us get the word out. Tonight we're talking with Lauren Walker about energy medicine yoga. And, we've been trying to establish exactly what yoga is for people like me that have never done it, Lauren. Again, thanks for being here. What's the spiritual component of yoga? Where does spirituality come into this whole thing?
I think mostly where it comes in is in the sort of release and kind of releasing of expectations and having faith in forces that are bigger than yourself, how those operate and work in our lives. And I mean, we really are spiritual beings, and meaning we're infused with a spiritus, with spirit, with life, with this light. And the more that we practice energy medicine yoga and kind of clean the mirror, so to speak, clean the mud off the lens, the more we see our own reality and our own nature, which is divine. Each of us carries a divine spark within us. And that's sort of part of the goal and the path and the process is uncovering that inner divinity, which is coupled with an inner wisdom and compassion and grace, and is really can be an integral part of healing, but certainly an integral part of living your best life, living your most engaged and joyful time here, with that connection and understanding that you really are divine and that everybody else is too.
Let's differentiate between what we would consider to be normal, if there is such a thing, yoga, and energy medicine yoga. What are the distinctions between these two different ideas?
So yoga itself is an energetic practice, but it's really less and less of that energy has been taught in the more modern yoga, which is a lot of modern yoga that you see today is just very physical, acrobatic, or kind of aerobic, and not really in touch with the deeper aspects of it, which in my opinion is really more about healing and grounding and centering the physical body as well as the emotional body. And so the practices that we do in EM yoga that are different, quite a lot of it, let me back up and say, quite a lot of it looks the same. You'll do similar poses, you'll do similar flows, pose to pose to pose in the body, but there'll be slight variations. So we're working with the 9 energy systems of the body, and we'll do different things to get in touch with those systems within the context of the yoga practice. So that might be tapping or holding different points on the body or massaging different places on the body. The energy of the body is very tactile. It's not esoteric at all. It's not this kind of conceptual idea that you've got to, how do you get to the energy of your being. It's actually quite tactile and quite available, and you get your hands like right into the energy and you start to feel it in the physical body, in the space around the physical body. So we work with those techniques within the context of a yoga practice. And what I've found is they sort of both feed each other. So the energy outcomes of the yoga practice, those increase hugely, and then the yoga feeds the outcomes of the energy work, and that increases hugely. So it's really this dynamic system.
One of the things I see noted in some of the things you talk about here, you're talking about our organs crying out for help from all the toxins and pollution in our body. We hear about this from every aspect, from nutritional aspects, from our doctors. We hear about this stuff all the time. How do we remove them, and where does EM yoga play a part in all this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few ways that we can address the toxicity of the body. One is on a very physical level, working with the lymph system, which is the detoxifier of the body, and the lymph doesn't have its own pump, and so you've got to actually work with the lymph more directly. And so there are all these points on the core of the body and some on the legs that are actually trigger points. So you massage really deeply these points, and you trigger the dump of lymph from specific organs into the venous blood supply out of the body, so detoxing the body, really cleansing. And that's one of the most powerful practices that we do. And another thing that we do to work with the toxicity of the organs is actually working with the emotional component, the emotional energy. Emotional energy has a signature, a resonance, a vibration, and if it isn't allowed to leave the body, in other words, you play the note of whatever your emotion is, and the note recedes off and gets quiet and goes away, so that's like the energy dissipates. But if you don't allow that note to play, which a lot of us don't by stopping our natural emotions, that actually densifies and becomes physical matter and stops the flow of neuropeptides in the body, causes all kinds of problems. And all kinds of disease patterns in the body. And there's so much research now showing the direct correlation between emotional experiences, emotional stress, and physical disease patterns. And so one of the beautiful, really easy practices that we do as well is working with this emotional energy through a series of poses and sounds that release these toxic is a bit of a heavy word, but unprocessed emotions from the organs, from the tissues where they reside in the body.
If somebody is ill, let's say somebody actually has an illness that's been diagnosed, and I'm sure this varies depending on the illness, but is this a technique that can help either heal or mitigate some of these real legitimate illnesses in the body?
Anything.
Wow.
Everything. Because every disease pattern that shows up, whether it shows up full-blown or it shows up in the earlier stages, it already has an underlying energetic component of out-of-balance-ness in the body, right? So if you work with balancing your energies, then you can stop those diseases from happening. If you already have a disease, the first thing that you need to do is get the underlying energy to resolve, to come back into harmony. The incredible thing about our bodies is they want to heal. And I'm a huge fan of miracle stories. And, your whole show is predicated on paranormal events. And a lot of people consider miraculous healings to be paranormal events, meaning outside of the norm. But the truth of the matter is your body is designed for miracles. And that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Donna, my teacher, Donna Eden, and her work. She healed herself from MS when the doctors had completely given up on her. And, miracles happen all the time, and to anybody. It's not, you don't have to be special or have studied to receive a miracle, to receive the grace of healing. And so I really do think no matter where you are on your journey of healing, that this work is crucial and is key to part of your going forward with whatever, not every disease pattern is reversible, but to come into healing and in whatever capacity that is, whether it's reversal or acceptance, of whatever's going on for you. But absolutely, healing is available to everyone.
What about emotional healing? What if somebody is struggling with an emotional issue? Maybe it's a bad relationship or a divorce or something along those lines that, those are the things that tend to really tear us apart. Is this a technique that can help with that?
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's what this whole book is predicated on, this 5-element theory from Chinese medicine, because it encompasses everything and it gives us a tool to access our emotional body and our emotions and work with them within the context of the physical body as well. And, that's one of the pieces that's really blown me away is how many people have shared their stories of emotional healing, whether it's through grief, trauma, different sufferings that they've gone through. I've had several people come up to me and say that this was the missing link for them for their healing, and 3 that jump to mind are people that are all mothers actually that had lost children, and were really unable to move forward. And after they took a training with me that wasn't even designed specifically for emotional healing, it's just part of the package, and they all said that was the piece that got them towards moving on, moving forward, and healing. So absolutely, that's so powerful for emotional work.
I'm J.V. Johnson. Thanks for being here. Stop by my YouTube page, J.V. Johnson on YouTube. Give that a subscribe and click the little bell icon, because that way when we go live, you'll get a little notification and you can join us for these live broadcasts. We do more than just Beyond Reality Radio there, although there is quite an archive of Beyond Reality Radio shows on that YouTube page. I do a bunch of other things there as well, as people in the chat will tell you. And also stop by my Facebook page. That's also just J.V. Johnson on Facebook. You can also find it if you search JVJ Paranormal. Our guest tonight, Lauren Walker, we're talking about her book, The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. You use the word prescription in the title. Obviously, this is far from that, because I think we're probably an over-medicated society. We turn to prescriptions from doctors for almost everything, and I'm hearing things in what you're telling me that this may be a solution that's a non-pharmaceutical one for a lot of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a prescription for your life, and so it includes, it's really specific to you as well, and that's what the book guides you through, is to discovering where your imbalances lie and then what you need to do to bring them back into balance. That's the holy grail of health, is balance, and actually time in nature and balance. Those 2 things are what's meant to bring us into our healthiest selves. And so it runs the gamut of what you might need for your specific issue, whether it's a physical or emotional or spiritual issue or psychological issue that you're dealing with, how you'll attend to it, finding out the area, one of 5 areas, so it's kind of very simple. There's only one of 5 areas that you might be out of balance in. And then doing whatever those physical practices are, breathing practices, might be some journaling, some gratitude practices. There's all kinds of things. Being in nature, that's a huge one. There's a whole section on diet and nutrition. And so, there's so many aspects that make us either healthy or unhealthy. And so depending on where you are on that spectrum is kind of what you'll do, and the practices that you'll find that will help make your life more easeful and happier and better than it is right now.
Sorry to do this to you. We've got another break coming up in about 30 seconds, but I wanted to ask about longevity. Is there any research or science that offers any insight into if this can actually help your lifespan, increase your lifespan?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm going to have to start doing some research on that, the scientific. I've got tons of anecdotal. I mean, one of my student teachers right now is 80, starting in the next phase of her life. Donna's 75 and has never felt better, looked more vibrant. But actual, peer-reviewed, that kind of stuff, I'll just put that right on my list and do some research on that.
Lauren Walker is our guest tonight. She's got a book that's called The Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription. Lauren, would you say this book is a how-to guide in some sense?
I do think so. Yeah, it's a how to understand what your energy is and how to work with it in the body, and it's a really simple. It covers a lot, breath, but it's also very simple to use. It's your energy is easy. You use it. It sounds silly. You use it every day. Certainly, you do. You get up and you do things, and you're awake right now, and you're animated by energy. But some of the techniques that are in this book are really simple to use as well. So you don't have to do a full yoga practice, but you get these tools that you can use any time during your day. If you get stressed out, you put your hand, I'll just tell you right now, you put your hand to your forehead, or you put your 2 or 3 fingers in that little hollow at the base of the throat and keep your stress response from going off the hook. Or if you're starting to get sick, you thump in the center of your chest. And some of these things are so simple, but they're so effective, and you'll find that as you start to use the practices, how powerful they are for how easy they are.
I saw a video on your website where you mentioned 2 of those techniques, the one about putting some fingers in the I don't know what you call that little area at the base of your neck.
The sternal notch is called.
Okay, well,
yeah.
you put and I just tried it, and I thought, wow, you can feel it. I mean, you obviously have a physical sensation, but there's something calming about it. And then the whole idea of putting your hand on your forehead, and when I saw that struck me as that's almost something that we have an innate reaction when we see often somebody's stressed, they put their hand on their forehead. Is that where that comes from? Is that it actually has some kind of calming or healing consequence to doing that?
Yes, it absolutely does, and you brought up so many great issues with that. So what it does, your hands are electromagnetic. In other words, you move energy with your hands. Your whole body is electromagnetic. And by putting your hand over your forehead, what you do is you're keeping the blood in the forebrain. So when you go into a stress response, what happens is the blood leaves the forebrain, goes into the limbs so that you can fight or you can flee. But we don't generally need to do that when we go into a stress response because we rarely physically fight or run away from something. Most of what we need to do to resolve issues is to think creatively and intelligently. And by putting your hand on your forehead, that's just what you're doing. You're keeping the blood in your forebrain so that you can think creatively and think intelligently. And it absolutely is an innate, inherent wisdom of the body that we do that naturally. We do that naturally. We'll put our hand over, we'll pat our chest if we're feeling sad or shocked about something. There's all of these things that we do that are natural, that are evolutionary, because energy medicine was the first medicine that there was. And the reason that we survive to this day is because we had a deep connection to how to help ourselves, how to heal ourselves, way before there were hospitals or clinics or aspirin or surgeries or any of that. We had to know how to do these things. And so a lot of these techniques are very intuitive and very very natural, and they really evolved from as we evolved.
I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask it anyway and make sure I hear you answer it, because we've had some people make comments with other guests that we've had that have offered what we would consider to be alternate healing options. But I'm assuming that you do not recommend anyone use a method like this instead of working with a physician.
No, absolutely. And of course, as you said, there's a caveat in the book and all of that sort of thing. If you're working with a healthcare provider, the hope is that they will be interested enough in this and they'll look into it with you and see if it's appropriate for you. And, it's still within the context of a yoga practice and to some degree self-diagnosis, certainly self-reporting on things. And there is a whole section on how to test your energy, which is really fascinating as well, and test if things are good or not good for you. But there's also resources to find a practitioner that you can work with one-on-one if you're really dealing with something serious. And then and absolutely, you don't want to do anything that's that's going to compromise if you're in a challenging situation. So you definitely want your doctor or your health provider to sign off on whatever alternative things that you're doing.
Now, I want to ask about a couple things specifically in the book. There's a chart in here. It's table 1 in the book. It says 5 elements, body ailments, and you reference water, wood, fire, earth, metal. You've got a whole bunch of things like swollen abdomen, abdominal pain, and then you have little check boxes under things like water, wood, fire. Explain this chart to me, because it's quite complete.
Yeah, so that's the theory that this book is based on. It's the 5-element theory, and it's part of Chinese medicine, as we said earlier, 5,000-year-old healing tradition. And so everything in the universe in this theory falls into one of 5 elements: the seasons, the physical elements of the earth itself, your physical body, all of your organs, all of your emotional, pieces and thoughts, and the stages of your life, your personality. It's a comprehensive system, and it's incredibly powerful. But it's also it's comprehensive and also simple, because everything is one of 5 things. So if you have something going wrong with you right now, a disease pattern or some kind of illness or something, it also is in one of these 5 elements. And so with these charts, and there's a physical one and an emotional one, or a psychic one, and you find what area you are out of balance in. And then you would go to that practice to bring that element into balance, which would then help to resolve the physical or the emotional issue that you're working with right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So if someone was to pick up the book, is it just a start at the beginning and read through, or is there another way that they should manage reading? Because there's a ton of not just information, but you've got, I think those are pictures of you actually in certain poses and describing how to do certain techniques. It's very, very complete. So is it a start front to back kind of read, or do you access sections that you think you need?
I think it really depends, where you are if you have a yoga practice already and you've got some familiarity with this, versus if you've never practiced before, you might be more inclined to sort of start at the beginning and go through. There's also an hour worth of embedded video in the book, and so some of the practices that might be a little more difficult to read, you can actually watch me doing the practices. There's a full 30-minute practice that is the essential kind of daily grooming for your energy, and that's on video as well. But you also can just really flip through the book and see what jumps out at you. I always think that's a really valuable technique to use in some of these healing guides, because there is an underlying energy, if you will, right? So they might guide you to something that you need that you might not have noticed. And just diving into those charts is also really fun. That might be, but an interesting way to start, even if you're not suffering or struggling with something right now, to sort of go through and give yourself a timeline or a time capsule of what has gone on in your life. So what areas, what elements have you've struggled with more? What areas of your life have been more out of balance? And there's a quiz to find out what element you are. Sort of, it's not quite like astrology, but it is in that each of us has an element that's our predominant element, and it's considered the oldest personality system on the planet. And so you can really find out what makes you tick and what makes other people tick. And so there's so many ways to work with it. I think just having it and flipping around in it and just playing with it, some of the practices, and seeing. I really advocate keeping a journal yourself, see what works and what you like, what you don't like, and then creating, again, the RX, the prescription for you, so that this program works exactly how you need it to.
Would this be considered an advanced form of yoga or beginner form of yoga or somewhere in between?
The beauty of this work is that you can do it wherever you are in the yoga practice. So, all of these techniques are woven into traditional yoga poses. And so if you've never done a yoga pose before and you find one of these poses that you do, that's great. You get to jump right into the energy medicine yoga version. But if you've already been practicing yoga for years, you can weave this in wherever you are, whether you're a beginner, advanced, master, a teacher. You can use these techniques because they're really applicable to any kind of yoga. So it's really for every level of yoga practitioner.
Are there props involved? I've heard things about a new, I don't know if it's new or not, but it's new to where I am, aerial yoga, where there's some kind of, hammock kind of thing involved. Yep. Are there props involved with this?
Not the hammock, although I've definitely taken some of those classes, and I'm always just doing my own EM yoga thing in a regular yoga class. And doing EM yoga in the hammocks is great because a lot of it is really long holds, and you're just supported by this beautiful material, and you can kind of it's just a lovely experience. But you don't need any props other than you would ordinarily use in a yoga class. And I do yoga a lot outside on just a blanket or a sheet or a towel or something, so I don't even use a yoga mat most of the time. But that's all you would need. Any props that you ordinarily use for yoga, a mat, a blanket, a block, some people use a strap. It's really adaptive to you, to your needs. And if you have never practiced yoga before, then you'll just start with us on page 1 and work through, and by the end you'll have a practice for yourself, and it'll be really beautiful.
When people start yoga, should they expect to be sore? I mean, obviously there's a good feeling of soreness after you've worked out. There's a feeling of accomplishment with that, plus it's doing some good in some fashion. Should people expect that when they start doing something like this?
No, and sometimes yes. So generally no, because in the best incarnation of yoga, it's not an aerobic workout. Those kind of yoga practices are not really giving you the energetic transformation that you should be getting in a yoga class. So you're getting a workout, but you're not necessarily getting the energy work that you're looking for. So you shouldn't be sore in that way. But we talked earlier about moving lymph out of the body and working on those neurolymphatic reflex points. And those are excruciatingly sore when you massage them because, of course, they're triggering detox in the body, and the more toxic you are, the more painful those points will be. And then once you start to massage those, and we caution or sort of say, don't do too many at once, just start slowly, because you can trigger a healing curve and a kind of just feeling nauseous and maybe headachy as you detox in the body. And so with any kind of detox practice, you really want to take it slow and drink lots of liquids and take a hot bath with salts, but that's really the only place that you're going to feel any soreness. One of the rules of energy in the physical body is nothing in your body should hurt, ever. And I say that to people and they're shocked because everyone has so much pain that they're carrying around. If you have pain in your body, that is not only its energy that is stuck, that is the definition of pain in the body, but it's giving you information. And so to just continue on in your life with pain that then becomes chronic pain that then you're dealing with simply in a pain management level, you've gone way further than what that information is trying to tell you. So nothing ever in the physical body should hurt. And if it does, you've got to find out what's going on and resolve that, again, so that the energy can flow, the energy can move, the body can heal. So long answer, no, you shouldn't feel sore after an EM yoga class.
I feel sore when I walk up a flight of steps anymore.
Well, then you need to start doing EM yoga with us right away.
I think you're right. I know you've got some events and stuff coming up, too. What's happening in your future here?
So coming right up, actually, my teacher, Donna Eden, and I produced a course with Yoga Journal, and that'll be released within the next month or so, and you can find out about that on the website. We'll have a landing page for that. And then I've got a couple of teacher trainings coming up. If you study yoga deeply and you want to take an immersion, or you're a yoga teacher and you want to learn how to teach this, I've got a couple of those coming up. And 2 really beautiful retreats this summer, one on the East Coast in New York at the Omega Institute in June, and a week-long in Montana, actually, at the Feathered Pipe Ranch in August. So lots of fun stuff on the agenda. And
where can people get a hold of this book that we've been talking about all night?
I always always encourage you to go to your local bookseller and ask them to carry it, and certainly any place that you order books online. I like to order from Powell's. You can go right to the publisher, SoundsTrue.com. But anywhere you order books, you can get this. It's all over the place. And don't forget to check out the videos in there, because you start reading and you get carried away, but then you've got videos that are really, really helpful.
Lauren, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate the conversation, the information, and the knowledge. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here. I appreciate it as well.
All right, once again, the website is emyoga.net. You can check that out, get a whole bunch of information about the book and Lauren's other work. It's Beyond Reality Radio. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up. Don't go away. Please support the program. Go to patreon.com/Johaw. That's Johaw. Well, it's just JV tonight. Welcome back. We just have a minute here. I want to remind you, tomorrow night we've got Paolo Atavissimo. It's an Italian name. I should be able to do this. Paolo Atavissimo. He's going to be talking about the moon hoax conspiracy, but he's going to be approaching it from the fact that, no, it wasn't a conspiracy. We actually went to the moon. We did that all those years ago, and he's going to argue the points that the others bring up that it was a hoax. That's hour one of tomorrow night, and then hour two, we've got psychic author Gary Williams talking about predictions of the future. His new book is called The Foreseeable Future, and we'll be talking about that. So we've got a great show for you tomorrow night, as we always do. Thank you for being here tonight. It's Beyond Reality Radio, and I'll catch you tomorrow.
Beyond Reality Paranormal is hosted by J.V. Johnson and produced by Orion Palmer and Slick Eddie Edwards. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please consider supporting the program either through your podcast platform, click on the link in the description, or on Patreon at Johaw Productions. If you'd like to be a guest on Beyond Reality Paranormal, or you have a recommendation for a guest, contact our producer, Slick Eddie Edwards. Eddie is spelled with a Y, at slickeddieedwards@gmail.com.